Thank you so much, Nondoe. Thank you, everyone, for joining me this evening or morning or afternoon, depending on where you're coming from. I'm looking forward to sharing some new poems with you, and new for me is everything post-book, post-Slaughterhouse. So that's my little baby. It came out 2 years ago now. So these are new. Some of them, that means 2 years old. Some of them, it means a little younger, though nothing super young. Some of my more recent work, I've been kind of meditating on childhood, growing up, and trying to, I guess, write about happy times more than I did or I did write some happy poems in Slaughterhouse, but a lot of not so happy ones too. So that's kind of what I've tried to focus on tonight. But of course, it won't be poetry without a little bit of emotional baggage too. So this first poem is about the street where I grew up. Puccini Street. Born on Puccini Street, raised in the refrain between Bach and Chopin, I roamed the parks, composed fairy tales on Beethoven and twirled out dreams along Dvorak. Christmas beetles and flying ants visited us in their hundreds each summer, more pest than privileged guest. One year, 1,000 white butterflies snowflaked our garden with the flutter of freedom. We frolicked with nets, not understanding that this kind of miracle could not be captured. We didn't yet know that telling our stories in Times New Roman would make them more real. I still believed in fairies, prayed to toadstools wishing they'd portal me somewhere more magical. What could be more enchanting than those trees that canopied our garden in their make-believe games, where I lived out the song of my childhood in the belly of Puccini. And this next poem, I believe, is recently been published in Ons Kleintjie Zine. Haven't yet held my copy, but I'm excited to. And it's another childhood memory type poem. It is the summer. I live suspended in mid-air over concrete. My still crayon-stained fingers clench onto rubber as the yesterday, today, and tomorrow bush blurs violet beneath me. I hold my breath from the moment I throw myself off the roof to tumble into the trust fall of that dad-made foofy slide. The air escapes me in a scream as the summer's chlorined sparkle bounces against my toes and I let go to plunge into the deep end. I am caught somewhere between falling and flying, the closest to bodiless I'll ever be. And then the next two poems were written earlier this year when I was able to participate in a food writing workshop that Giles ran for Life Writing Collective. That was my most prolific day I've had in a long time. I love food, I love eating, I love cooking, and so it was the perfect opportunity to spend the whole day writing poems about it. And this one is coming out in the next New Contrast issue, and it's called Vryheid, which means freedom. It's also the name of the town, which is very convenient. Never have I found it again. Millie bread out of a can. I know that it was real, bought or boiled, as real as the first pop of the jar of preserved guavas opened. Picked from the garden, growing with its faraway tree branches, gifting fruit to birds and dreaming children below. We were city-born. Here we found a new freedom, walked in wonder through Oom Ewold's vegetable garden on their plot of land in northern Natal. We helped gather string beans for supper, slipped between millies sprouting taller than our years, reached for my favorite, the carport grapevine, fruit small and black with skin so bitter you couldn't eat it. Instead, squeezed their inner flesh out into your mouth, spat the seeds back to the ground. How exciting it was to forage and eat, to play tennis in the street, learning the meaning of love, knowing it in the meal times we held hands around the table first, my great Auntie Net leading the prayer of thanks, me, a heathen, never before taught how to pray, wanting to wish away the holiday's end, to hold on to the joy of this practical woman who played games of catch with us in the garden. My own granny back home, stoic and stiff-lipped with only store-bought biscuits and tea. Here there was fresh custard in generous scoops to smother the homemade guava preserve. There were gooseberries caked in bushes to turn into jam. Always we'd drive home fuller, having left the score, love, love. Cinnamon sugar. Sunday morning, preferably drizzling. I want pancakes. Cinnamon, sugar, a squeeze of lemon. Sometimes I'm extravagant. Fry banana, add caramel or stew apple with cinnamon, clove, nutmeg, and comfort. Always the base is the pancake. Thin but mighty, vessel of goodness. As a child, I mastered the crepe maker. Turn and dunk, twist and watch, sizzle, wait for edges to lift, then flip. Now I'm not as fancy. Stick to the pan. Still, I live up to my name, given at a market in Prince Albert, 10 or 11 years old, when my dad asked how many pancakes I wanted. 6. 6 pancake Melissa. The year I lived alone with my dog, I made one for her too. Now she comes running whenever she smells cinnamon. I try different recipes. The one with yogurt makes them soft, almost fluffy. The Tani Panakuk recipe emulates the Kak Bazaar. These are chewy, tough, include vinegar and oil. There is, of course, the classic crepe, thin as memory. Water, flour, egg, milk, simple. An easy dinner after a hard work day. Savory or sweet, they always deliver. Every time one must conclude with cinnamon and sugar. Squeeze of lemon. The taste of Sunday mornings and home. And the next few poems are travel poems. This time last year, or a little bit earlier than this time last year, I was able to visit Scotland and Ireland. I've got Scottish and Irish heritage, so it was really nice to get to see places that my ancestors come from and to experience a parallel but different culture and world. So this first one is an ode to Glasgow. O you city of breakfast rolls and beer, buzzing corners of multinational wonder. O you base for buskers filling the air with bagpipe dreams. You ancient history, living and reliving. You who have seen more than I can imagine. You caught me by surprise. Your cobbled walkways, your construction workers. The way you glow with light. Walls painted, adventures for the eyes. Your pigeons fill the square, fat on the past. Corners heaped with columns of heritage, statues holding me in place, crowned with the orange cone of revolution. You marvel of green spaces, rich in your intention to save the world. What a gift to get to know you. What a sorrow to have to leave. Causeway Coast. Today I flew while the ocean shifted from navy to bioluminescent. Watched green grow greener until my eyes hurt. The soft emerald held me. Today I rose above an ancient coastline, drifted along its path. My 2 legs carried me, good, strong legs. I levitated in my mind. Joy grew 2 legs of her own and walked beside me. I left some heart here in this new home that is not mine to keep but could be. Today, I lived 9 lives and all of them were beautiful. Each one a shade of green. I named them peaceful and called myself grown. Earthborn, earth gifted. I danced like only Mother Earth was watching. Cloaked in Ireland's glorious green gown, twirled along the cliffs of the Causeway coast. I was giant blessed. Today I was moving, and that was enough. And then sticking with the color theme, given that we are in spring and we've got gorgeous daisies and spring flowers blooming all over. This poem was inspired at this time of year. Maybe last year, maybe the year before, I can't remember. It's called Searching for Yellow. All day I have been searching for the color yellow. Yellow like spring flowers scattered across parks to be crushed by children and dogs overwhelmed by the joy of living. Yellow like leaves giving themselves over to gravity, then decay. Yellow like dehydration, like piss and biles burning hunger. Yellow like the sun's scream at midday, the way she blares from above, threatening blindness and exhaustion with unforgiving rage. Yellow like cafeterias of broken eggs beaten to blobs. Yellow like hope, like my favorite jumpsuit, canola fields, like daisies, like corn ripe for harvest. Yellow like this day promises to get better, if only I could taste more yellow. Okay. Then we move into a few heavier poems. This next poem is about a lost friendship and that feeling when you kind of get a window into their life via social media that you're no longer part of their life, and how that can reawaken those lost feelings of not knowing this person anymore, but knowing them at the same time. Stranger. It is too late to rekindle our connection, to find the rainbow amongst the bad weather of our end. I watch her, once friend, get married to queerness through the echo of a public window. I was not invited. The loss of her is reopened and healed by how I still know her in the teal-flowered wedding dress. She, a bouquet of beautiful. I'm holding on to the same sorrow that kept me bound to my bed 6 or 7 years ago. It haunts me, this lonely which has revisited me through my years. I miss her. I don't know what to do with that. Where do you put a living loss? What do you call it? It is a crumpled note, whispering from the dark corner of my memory drawer, dirtied by the weight of uncelebrated milestones. There's no place for a friend who is now a stranger, who married her truth after you'd both already forgotten that there was ever any love between you. This next poem was written some time ago in a workshop that I can't even remember exactly, but it was kind of about like retelling something without ever being clear on what the truth is within it. Yeah. A first love, a missed exam, a life. The first girl I loved told me she wanted to die and disappeared. She did not want to be alive. I did not want to be responsible. She left me over and over again, called me friend, then love, then nothing in the breaking of days. Ghosted me before I knew what ghosting was. I ghosted animal science by accident. Arrived to the exam as everyone left. Still passed the module, I don't know how. By autumn, everything was falling. I wilted, emptied, a half person. I did not want to live. Did not love myself enough to believe I could get past this failure of love. I was alone in the city I was born in. Returned to where I was meant to belong, and she was nowhere. Not mine to know. I lost myself. Wished myself out of existence. There was a girl. I told myself I loved her. No, she told me she loved me. Did not show it. Poetry is better if you show, don't tell. How do I show the parts of me that have not reformed? Can I show you the notebooks filled with unsent letters? The way I studied her every word? Or do you want to see me, sitting here, now, still alive? I can only tell you, there was a girl. There was love. Now, there is my life. Right. A friend of mine gifted me fridge magnet words for making fridge poems. And she's a bit over the top, so she sent me a huge glossary of words. So I've got a lot of words to write fridge poems. And this poem came from a phrase that I threw together from the words on the fridge. The body is a ceiling. It may be the antidepressants or the grey fog of age whistling for her. My dog's appetite is shrinking. I consider letting her leave this world. Wonder if this is what she wants. Xanax and Prozac not enough to make this place livable. She has lost her joy. Her days now spent asleep or in the hiss of a panic attack. She lights up only for brief bursts on a walk. The rest of time a slow drag. The body is a ceiling. The mind a cruel container for the howl of always active alarms. This night is an ocean of memory, and my anxious dog machines sleep from fluff and fright. It was a time she was mine, I hers. But now it is less a belonging to one another and more burden. My dog is a mute beast in a man's world, trapped at the whim of our control. I want to set her free, to tell her to choose the path she wants, but she just lays there looking at me, eyes a blank window to nowhere. Who am I to tell her it's enough? Who am I to ask her to stay with me, to keep trying to master the panic that holds her hostage every minute? Why can't she just tell me, I want to die, or don't give up on me yet, friend? Why am I the hopeless interpreter for her survival? Responsible, accountable to love and fury and some instinctual whisper that she refuses to teach me. My dog will die. It may be soon or much later, but it will have to be by my hand. When it happens, I promise, it will be with mercy, with love. Good news is she's still alive and farting. Okay. Few more to go. We're nearly there. So last year I had the opportunity of participating in something called Fixi, which was a resident workshop, not workshop, writing residency. And basically they wanted to see what would happen when they put science and creatives together. So they had a scientist that was the resident scientist for the 4 days or whatever that we were there. And there were what they called provocations. So the scientists gave us basically lectures on their scientific field. And our scientist was a astrophysicist working with binary star systems. So she gave us some lectures about her topic of research. And then we were tasked with creating something, writing something around it for a collection, which has just been released. So that is called, can't remember right now, but it's available as a free EPUB. I'll put it in the chat afterwards. And it was a really amazing experience. Obviously, I'm a vet, so science is my jam, but getting to like really be in a deep scientific field that's totally unlike anything I know anything about, and then to create from it was really, really interesting. And people wrote plays, people did poems, people wrote stories. One person did a whole like comic series with drawings and stuff. So it was really cool to see what different people thought of or what stood out for them. So I wrote 4 poems. I'm going to read 2 of them. And I think with my poems, I kind of had fun playing with personification, which is one of my favorite things to do in poetry. So this one's called Space Teacher's Survival. And it's got a little epigraph or whatever you call that. The lifetime of the donor star determines the lifetime of the binary, names them both as having existed. Which basically means these 2 stars are paired and one of them decides how long they both live. The smallest stars are the sturdiest. Survivors despite all the lonely orbits, despite the insatiable burn to belong somewhere. Beyond all those failed first dates, the friendships that never were. Light years of galaxies spent searching for connection, longing to be held by the gravity of another. Existing on the other side of hours spent cataloging the not good enoughs. The bigger the star, the faster it will burn out. Collapse into supernova inevitable. Neutron star or black hole the only fate. These are just the facts. And yet they are a manifesto for those of us living outside the binary, on the margins in the orbit of the spotlight. The queers afraid to name their love in public spaces. The mothers unable to speak aloud the loss of self that follows new life. The desperate dreamers unable to live on their creativity alone. The donors, the choiceless, those slaving to others' desires. Even the smallest dots of luminescence matter in the expansion of the universe. Globular clusters tell the ancient story of light years, space measured by continued existence. A group of small stars all born together, their epoch a tale to be told to us by the sky. Survival equals light. This one's called The Sun Mourns Itself. I am not special, small, one in a million trillion like me. No one can look at me. I can never be held. My flaming skin surface flares away all potential suitors with its brutal burn barrier. Their lives depend on me, a system I am at the top of, important, godlike. I can only be loved from afar, untouchable, orbited, worshipped, never known. One day I will expand, a reverse melting to consume everything in my system, leave just a speck in a galaxy among a trillion other dust dots. It will not matter. Matter cannot be destroyed, only transferred. The life-giving energy of me floating out in pulse waves will become something new. My planets will die. There will be none I loved to hold my wake. My embers will dissolve in unmemory. The dead cannot mourn, and so I will be unmournable. I will die as I live, alone at the center of it all. Softness, a slow expansion, and then collapse, returning within as I consume them all. Eventually, even my own light will not be left to mark us as once here. Okay, I've got 2 poems left. I thought I would read a poem from my book that I've not read before, aloud to people, to myself many times. And it's a contrapuntal. So for those who don't know, a contrapuntal is kind of like 3 poems in one. So it's got kind of 2 columns to it, and you can read the one side top to bottom. You can read the other side top to bottom, and you should be able to read it from left to right. And the way I was taught it is kind of that you want almost 2 opposing things on either side, and then them to make a whole new meaning together. So my contrapuntal is called Freedom and Control Compete for My Attention at the Dance. I go to the dance alone, spin and dip until I am a dizzy strobe, twirl until I am green, throw my hands up, burst, froth over a bottle of champagne at my graduation from need. The bubbling music in the punch bowl, it is sickly sweet with buzzed thanks. When she pins a corsage of carnations to my chest, I do not say no. Her freedom from need, my only obsession. I let her consume me. Then the other side. Shrink to fit the gown she chose. Stop. Stand in a silent corner, eyes watching me emptying out on the dance floor. I turn off, stare at my reflection, drink myself down, the taste of my compliance marching through my honey-gritted teeth. Control, virgin white, presses me up against a wall. I do not fight back. I sign myself willing, whole. I go to the dance alone, shrink to fit the gown she chose, spin and dip until I am a dizzy strobe, stop, twirl until I am green, stand in a silent corner, throw my hands up, eyes watching me burst froth over a bottle of champagne, emptying out at my graduation from need. On the dance floor, I turn off the bubbling music, stare at my reflection in the punch bowl, drink myself down. It is sickly sweet with the taste of my compliance marching buzz thanks through my honey-gritted teeth. When she, Control, pins a corsage of virgin white carnations to my chest, presses me up against a wall, I do not say no. I do not fight back. Her freedom from need, my only obsession. I sign myself willing. I let her consume me, whole. Okay, and the grand finale. A love poem. So, my partner, wife, is a brewer and a scientist, and they love sharing fun, interesting scientific facts. So this is a love poem that's centered around that. We were meant to flocculate together. Life compass. I trust myself to navigate the rough with you. I trust you, researcher, for every answer, even to questions I did not know to ask. You teach me to explore. From you, I learn about flocculating brewing yeast that choose each other through their genes. I want to ask you about cooperation, how that works, but I already know we are my answer. We are the forever promise of building a lifetime of shared at the perfect meal. The joyride of ocean walks and long drives. We are the engineers of making it. By it, I mean happiness, companionship, every good thing I had once hoped for my life but didn't believe was possible until I met you. You make me want to get home faster, to be wherever you are rather than anywhere else. Let me be the scaffolding for your future. Let's flocculate together for reasons beyond just our own survival. I want to bud into joy with you. I want to keep watching you discover more ways to wonder at the world, to learn about it all through you, my wonder. Thank you.
Melissa, wow. Thank you so much. Can we please all unmute and give Melissa a big round of applause? Yay. Melissa, whoo, okay, such a departure from Slaughterhouse. I feel like I came here expecting to hear familiar, comfortable poems. And what I heard was completely different. And it's so different. The first few poems that you read, I love nostalgic poems. They are some of my favorite things to write, to also listen to, because there's something that's magical about remembering, especially childhood moments, like moments in childhood. There's something so magical about tapping into that period in life. And I don't know where I'm going with my thoughts, but this is just to say I really enjoyed this reading, and I really enjoyed those first moments where you were reading all those poems that was nostalgic and that were about childhood memory. They were just so tangible. The images were so clear to me and for me. And yeah, I'll stop there and open up for anybody who'd like to ask a question or make a comment. There are some comments and yeah, there are some wonderful comments in the chat, which I think you might have seen or that you can have a quick look-see through. But if anyone has a comment, you are more than welcome to speak. I will. Is there? Oh, Ed, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, sure. I have a lot of ideas and thoughts running around in my head, but one of them is that you remain just amazingly brave in your poetry, Melissa. And yeah, I really love that about your work. And I love your ability to run with ideas. It's there in the poem about yellow. It's there in the space poems, if I can call them space poems, but just fantastic poems. And I also found very interesting the poem which had this collage of perspectives. And I suppose it's echoed in the contrapunctal poem, or that one, where you have this layering and this, you have this meaning, meanings achieved through this layering. And I'm tripping myself up, but you know what I'm saying here. Yeah, just really skillful to pull that off. So the question that I have, it's yeah, I think you already know what it is, but how's it been for you to navigate the writing after your collection, given that it was such a generous collection and a lot of yourself went into that collection? What has that been like for you? yeah, I don't know if you want to say more about that.
Thank you, Ed. And thanks, Nondre, for your compliments as well. Yeah, I think that reading all of these now in like a group or a reading, one gets more of a sense, I guess, of what's come after, right? Which I haven't really done. I've kind of vaguely made a list of what poems I've written post Slaughterhouse, but not got a feel yet for what's the new voice or whatever. So yeah, it's been difficult in many ways. I think, as you say, Slaughterhouse was so much of me, and I think because so much of it is about the Slaughterhouse and about my work as a vet, the Slaughterhouse thing is now like what 5-6 years in my past. It's not something I need to write about anymore. I feel like that I've done more than enough on it in this book, so that's not something I can tap into. And in some ways, at the end, it became an easy thing to just like, there's so much imagery and all of that you can work with from that. And the same in some ways applies to my like day job, and that how many times can you write about the same thing, right? So that's been challenging to find new inspiration or things to write about. And that's also, I also am in a joyful place in my life, and I don't want to only write about sad stuff and traumatic stuff and hard stuff. So yeah, trying to tap into the childhood memories, kind of inspired a bit by you, Nondwe, and your collection that tries to do that more joyful stuff. And yeah, find new niche things to write about as well. And that's where the food stuff, the space things, those are very random in some ways, but it's been fun to just play and be more playful, because that, I think, also having that pressure of like getting this collection out and then what's going to come next, which people always ask, oh, are you working on something new? There's a lot of pressure to it, and in some ways that takes away the fun of being creative. And I don't have to do it as my day job. I've got a day job, so to have it still as a thing where you're tapping into that childhood playfulness, it's been difficult to like allow myself to not feel obliged to sit and write or edit or submit even. Yeah, and so in some ways, like post collection is a bit anticlimactic, because you've done this, now what's next? Like you've reached the top of the hill, now it's just downhill from here, right? But hopefully not. So we'll see.
No, I don't think so. I want to quote back a line from your poem. They always deliver. So, good.
Yeah.
I'm keeping on. Yeah, fantastic.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments in the room? Any other thoughts? Any other questions? If there are no other questions, thoughts. Oh, yeah. Laura, please go ahead.
Hi, Melissa. I just
Hello.
want, there is no downhill in that at all. There is absolutely nothing downhill. I don't care what you say about how that might be, thinking in your head, because that story just isn't true. To hear the way in which you're writing about subjects that maybe nothing about, but you can still pull on this amazing vocabulary and these feelings that you have listening to another scientist. That's amazing. That's wild to think about, stepping into a completely different realm and writing like that. So yeah, I just wanted to say they were wonderful. Yeah, you don't need to worry about whether or not you'll find that groove again. You're in it already.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura. It's good to hear your voice.
Nice to hear you too.
Well, there you go. No downhill. Only upwards. Onwards and upwards.
And uphill's all that hard work pedaling, which means you have to just sit and work.
So if there are no other thoughts, no other questions, no other comments, we'll take a 5-minute break. It's 2020. So we'll return at 2025 for the open mic.
That's next.
2025. That just hit me. Okay, so that was a coincidence that I did not catch because I'm slow. But, but yeah, so we'll take 5 minutes and return in 5.
Thank you.